In Texas, there's one crime that carries only two possible sentences: death or life in prison with no chance of ever getting out. Today's lesson is on capital murder. It's the most serious charge you can face, and we're going to break down exactly what it is.
So let me ask you a question. In the eyes of Texas law, what could possibly be worse than the crime of murder?
That's right, capital murder. It's on a whole other level, and that's what we're getting into right now.
So here's what you're going to learn today. By the time we're done, you'll know the exact things that take a murder charge and turn it into a capital murder charge, and you'll know the only two penalties that come with it. Okay, the easiest way to understand this is to think of it like a formula. You start with the basic crime of murder. Then, the state adds what's called a capital factor, a really serious circumstance. You put those two together and bam, the charge levels up to capital murder. So what exactly are these level-up factors? Let's get into the specifics of what turns a tragic situation into the most serious crime on the books. First, it can be about who the victim was. The law gives special protection to certain people. If the victim is a cop or a firefighter killed while they're on duty, that's a capital factor. If the victim is a child under the age of 15, that's a capital factor. Same goes for killing a judge because of a ruling, or a prison guard killed by an inmate. Next, the law looks at what was going on when the murder happened. If you kill someone while you're also committing another serious felony, like a robbery, a kidnapping, or sexual assault, it levels up. Getting paid to kill someone, that's a capital factor. Killing someone during a prison break or as part of prison gang business, also a capital factor. And the last category, well, it's pretty straightforward. It's about how many people were killed. If you murder more than one person, either at the same time or as part of the same scheme, that automatically levels it up to capital murder. Now, let's zoom in on the one you probably hear about most often, the murder of an officer or a firefighter. The law here is extremely specific. All right, this is the exact language from the Texas Penal Code. There are two parts here that are absolutely critical. First, the officer has to be acting in the lawful discharge of an official duty. That just means they have to be on the job. And second, you have to know that the person you're killing is an officer. The prosecutor has to prove both. And just so we're clear, peace officer is a broad term. It includes city police, sheriff's deputies, constables, even Texas Rangers. And fireman covers both paid and volunteer firefighters, as long as they are on duty.
So here's a real-world example to make it sink in. If a police officer in a full uniform driving a marked car pulls you over and you kill them, you can't argue later that you didn't know they were a cop. The uniform itself is considered proof that you knew exactly who they were. We've covered what capital murder is. Now let's talk about the penalty. Because in the state of Texas, the stakes literally do not get any higher. If a jury finds you guilty of capital murder, there are only two sentences possible. That's it. Option 1 is the death penalty. Option 2 is life in prison with zero possibility of parole. And let me be clear, without parole means you will die in a prison cell. Period. There is no option 3. Okay, that was a lot of heavy information. Let's do a quick knowledge check to make sure it's all making sense. You ready? First up, what are the only two possible sentences for someone convicted of capital murder in Texas? The answer, the death penalty or life in prison with no chance of parole, ever. Question 2. Let's talk about the victim's age. If the victim is 12 years old, does that fact alone make the crime a capital murder? The answer is yes, absolutely. The law specifically says murdering anyone under the age of 15 is a capital factor. 12 is under 15, so it qualifies. All right, last question, and this one's a little tricky. If you kill an officer who was, say, working undercover and you honestly had no idea they were a cop, is it capital murder based on their profession? The answer is no. Remember, the law is specific. The state must prove that you knew the person was a peace officer. If they can't prove you knew, it's still a murder charge, but it's not capital murder under that particular rule. All right, let's wrap this up. I want to leave you with one key idea that sums up everything we've talked about. Here's the bottom line. Capital murder isn't some strange, different way of killing someone. It's just murder, plus a special factor that the law considers especially awful. Whether it's who you killed, what else you were doing, or how many people died, that factor is what elevates the crime and brings on the most extreme penalty Texas has. Go to LegalGangster.com to get your 10-step guide to erase your Harris County criminal record.